99X, The Morning X. It's Barnes and Leslie and Fram. When you think about the bands that this radio station was built upon, the foundation, who would you say? Like, who would you list out?
Oh, I would say, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I would say Nirvana, INXS.
Oh, there's a good one.
The Cure.
Yeah. That's a very accurate and even in different genres layout.
Because we played everything.
We're so happy to have half of the originating, duo that put the band together, Andrew Farriss from INXS, right here. Hey, Andrew, welcome to 99X.
Hey, Barnes. Hey, Leslie. How are you guys?
Absolutely great.
It's great to see you. Barnes, Andrew and I have been able to, connect over the last several years. Andrew, my other job, which is at CMT, we've supported a lot of his videos and his new music. Your solo stuff is incredible. You're such a great songwriter. But congrats on continuing that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've always written songs, since I was 14. And obviously I did it with the INXS years. And I love that band and I love doing it with them. But I decided to keep writing songs, and then I started re-recording them, and here I am.
For those that don't know, like the deep history, Andrew was the man behind the music, and Michael was the man behind the lyrics most of the time. Fair enough? I mean, that's pretty much true. A lot of folks don't also realize that Michael, he didn't play an instrument. His voice was his instrument, and man, what a singer! What a dynamic performer on stage. But I was actually singing in a band when I met him, and he came and jammed with me and my brothers and my friends, and I knew that he had something special, hard to explain really, and he just got better and better. It's called a great voice, sex appeal, and all that equals rock star. I mean...
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember that day vividly when we lost Michael, and his legacy lives on 99X every day as we play INXS. Was that, when that happened, that had to just destroy you, but looking back on it over 20 years, how did all that just immediately impact you when that happened?
Yeah, it was terrible. It was a tragedy. He was a school friend for me in high school, and he was my friend, but I remember being, terrified of the media concentration on him passing away, and particularly the British press. And I remember sitting down to do a newspaper interview with the British media. And I said to the journalist at the time from one of the big papers, my mother died 2 years ago of cancer, and there's 3 brothers in INXS, and but you don't want to talk about that, do you?
Wow.
And a lot of people, I think, underestimate on the climb up the mountain when you do anything, could be music or whatever you're into, a corporate thing, whatever it is, it's only the people who are helping you in the back end of your life, being your family or your friends and those sorts of things. They're the things that go unspoken a lot of the time. And that's why I made my point, is that, yes, I miss Michael. I've lost a lot of friends and family, for over the years, and I still miss Michael, as a friend more than anything.
Yeah.
But I think that the stardom thing, I'll reflect on what you said before, Barnes, when you were talking about Michael being a great rock star. Yeah, he was. But I'll never forget when we first turned up on television in the United States in 1983, and we played a show called Rock and Roll Tonight in Los Angeles. And Eric Clapton and INXS and Simple Minds, a great Scottish band, was basically the 3 of us, performing live on that television show. And when we finished performing, being INXS, I'll never forget that Ray Manzarek from The Doors came backstage, and he was standing there at the dressing room door, and I knew who he was, and he said, "Is your singer inside?" I said, "Yeah, come on in." And I heard him walk over, and he said, I've watched a lot of bands and artists on this television show, and I never ever had wanted to come over and meet anyone. But when I saw you guys and I saw you on television, I got in my car and I drove over here and I wanted to talk to you. And I'll never forget that. I would have been about 23 or something. And I remember thinking, you know, those guys from that first run of bands, you know, the Beatles, the Stones, the Doors, that whole, you know, they'd seen it all. They knew what they were looking at. They knew they knew how it rolled, you know. Yeah.
That's pretty incredible to have Ray Manzarek come over. And I'm sure you had a lot of those instances, right, where maybe some legends came up and were big fans of INXS.
Sure. I mean, I think probably to me the one that really takes the cake, we met many amazingly talented people during our career, incredible people. But the first band that my brothers, my older brother Tim and I'm Andrew and my younger brother John, the Farriss brothers in INXS, the first band we ever saw was the Beatles.
Wow.
Our dad was in the Royal Navy on aircraft carriers at the end of World War II, and Dad hadn't been over to see our grandparents from Australia to England because people didn't fly everywhere back then. Maybe if you're in the military or maybe you're in government or something, or maybe, you know, you were something special or you're very wealthy, maybe you could fly. But most people got on a ship. So Dad put us three boys and Mum and Dad on a ship, and we sailed to London for 3 weeks. I'd never been so seasick in my life, you know.
I bet.
Yeah, and my older brother loved it because he could tell I was suffering, you know. And the doctor on board the ship would have to give you a suppository to stop you throwing up, you know. So every time that had happened, my brother Tim would say, "Hey, Dad, you know, Andrew's sick again," because he knew they'd have to give me one of those things, you know.
So your dad took you to see the Beatles?
That's killer.
When we got there, some other Australians had heard we were there and invited us down to a television show on the BBC in London. And that was who walked out and played. And we were sitting there.
Wow.
Little kids, you know, our polished black shoes on and long white socks and shorts and, you know, little tie probably and a white shirt. The three of us boys sitting there right front and center, you know. And I can remember the television cameras going back and forward. I can remember that day. And I think it might have even been before they went to the United States. But after the performance, and many years later, my older brother Tim and I said to Dad before he passed away, "Hey, Dad, did we actually do that? You know, like it seems surreal now, you know." And he said, "Yeah, sure." And afterwards we went and talked to him. I'm like, "What?" You know. So, you know, but INXS had lots of really odd things like that used to go on with us. The first show that we ever played at was a party by an American filmmaker who was living in Sydney. And our first show, well, we weren't called INXS, same guys. We were called the Farriss brothers. But that was the night Elvis died. That was August 16th, 1977. And but we found lots of strange things as a band would go on. Yeah, really. But probably the most, to answer your question, probably the most, well, to me, I have to say the most incredible experience was we were actually recording in Italy, and then we went to France, to Paris, to finish one of our albums, which was Full Moon Dirty Hearts, which came out, I think, around about 1993. And in the studio downstairs was Ray Charles. He was recording, and our manager, who was alive at the time, said, "You know, why don't you send a song down to Ray and see if he wants to do it?" And Michael and I looked at each other and went, he's not going to want to do one of ours. That's Ray Charles. What are you talking about? You know, why is he going to do one of our songs? So we sent a couple of songs we'd written down to him, and a message come up. He said, "Yeah, I really like him. Let's go." like what?
Wow.
Yeah, and so
that's incredible.
Yeah, he ended up doing a duet on one of the INXS records with former Mr. Charles. We call him out of respect, and then we all got excited, and he did too, and we decided to shoot a video in downtown New York City, and then we did that. And then David Letterman invited us with Ray to go on his show, and we played live on his show. And I got to tell you, being a keyboard player, I play guitar as well as other instruments, but I'm sitting there playing piano, and my dad had Ray Charles records, you know, vinyl records when I was a kid. And I'm pinching myself going, man, I can't believe I'm doing this.
That's just unreal.
That is surreal.
All
that
those stories, like,
surreal.
That's like serious rock royalty. We have to take a break. We're here with Andrew Farriss. This man has sold over 75 million records with INXS. He's back with new music, which in the next segment we'll let you hear some of it. I want to play an INXS song. I'm just going to pick a random one, and I want you to tell me what you remember about recording the song. Are you ready? Beautiful Girl.
Yeah, sure. Actually, the recording of that song, I think we actually took the piano recording off my original demo that I did at home in Sydney in Australia. And then we sort of elaborated on it as a band. And for that, I wrote that song by myself, not with Michael. In fact, on that particular album, on Welcome to Review, I wrote 4 of the songs myself, because when Michael came to my house, to hang out and write with me, I said to him, hey, I'm so excited to see you, and I can't wait, for us to write together. And I said, what do you got? Because I wanted to see his lyrics and what he'd been doing. And he looked really awkward for a minute. He said, I don't have the lyrics. I left him in a taxi cab in Paris.
Oh, no!
Are you serious?
And so you wrote the lyrics to Beautiful Girl?
Yeah. And so, I was like, okay, well, out of respect, and because he was a great lyricist, I would always say, and I thought to myself, he's a front man. It's good for him to want to sing the lyrics that he's writing. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, so, and out of respect, I would just say, well, you do the lyrics. That was the way I looked at it.
So some taxi driver has the real Beautiful Girl lyric, and then it's out there somewhere.
This interview isn't over. More after a quick break. You can also find it and more on the Morning X with Barnes and Leslie podcast. You're inside the best of the Morning X.